All guests on 95.7 The Game appear on the River Islands guest line. Isn't it time for you to discover the islands, River Islands in Lathrop? Guess who's on our guest line? It's our friend Andrew Fillipponi in Pittsburgh. 93.7 The Fan, and a good dad who is your daughter asleep? Is everything okay, Andrew?
She was ready for it. She's one, and she was on the slip and slide before I came out with you guys. So quick bath, bottle, and now out cold.
Well
so,
played.
You guys have my undivided attention.
Perfect.
Unless that's Omar Khan buzzing me right now to tell me he just traded for Brandon Aiyuk. Let me check. No, it's not.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Andrew, get yourself a glass of wine, sit back. The 1-year-old's asleep.
I do, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
I have a glass of wine right here.
We are parents as well. We know how this works. It's wine o'clock, so thank you for letting us invade on that. You tweeted 4 minutes ago that a source tells you, quote, between the Steelers and Niners, it's at the goal line. Now, you've sent out a lot of stuff about this today. I'm sure you've heard like the Twitter back and forth with a lot of people saying it's close, Pelissero, Garofalo saying it's not, but it is fluid. What can you tell us right now about these negotiations?
All right, so let me preface all this by saying that I understand, because I've lived this since March, that there's a lot of boy who cried wolf with the Brandon Aiyuk thing. So I am very careful about any Aiyuk information I get, because I know the way that it just inflames people here in Pittsburgh, and I'm guessing the same thing for you guys where you are. So when I got a text message around 10:30 a.m. Eastern time from a friend who said that the Steelers were in heavy trade talk with the 49ers for Aiyuk, I didn't want to believe it. And then I got another one about a half hour later from someone I actually trusted even more, and that's what got the ball rolling on all this. Look, Brandon Aiyuk wants to play for the Steelers. I don't know any other way to put it to you guys. I think he feels like the 49ers relationship is over. He's not going to get the money there. And this is not any reporting by me. This point by me is just complete opinion. It doesn't seem or sound like Washington is that interested. So if Washington's out and Daniels is not involved, that leaves the Steelers as Aiyuk's preferred trade destination. And it sounds to me, inference on my part, but backed up by a lot of the people I've talked to today, that his agent and the Steelers have probably already hammered out the money and the contractual part of things. What it's really coming down to is what can the Steelers offer the 49ers that gets them to pull the trigger and say, we're going to do this trade now instead of waiting for another deal to come around that suits our roster better, and also was one that ultimately Aiyuk is fine with getting traded to that team and also taking whatever money he wants from that team.
What do you think Pittsburgh would be willing to part with? Would it be one of the receivers, draft picks, or what kind of a combination do you think?
Dude, that's a great question. That's honestly, of all the things I've talked to about people regarding this today, that's the hardest, most difficult thing for me to hone in on. And look, it's whenever there's a big national football story going on and you feel like you're getting more information than the Adam Schefters or the rap sheets or these guys, if they're getting it, they're not reporting it. And you feel like you're on an island. It's scary. But I have a hard time with this because I don't know what receiver the Steelers could possibly give the 49ers right now to make them feel good about this trade. And I have a difficult time coming up with players on the Steelers' offensive side of the ball that would start and play for San Francisco now and help them win a championship. And it's two different schemes defensively, 3-4 versus 4-3. And I'm not sure how guys in the Steelers' front seven would fit what San Francisco is trying to do defensively. So that's the tough one for me. Guys, again, this is more me going with my gut instinct because no one has told me this. But I haven't heard first-round pick come up, which makes me think that there's not a first-round pick in this trade. At least to this point, the Steelers are either not willing to put the first-round pick in the trade or there's something that the 49ers want back from the Steelers that they prefer to a first-round pick right now.
Okay, so but with all that, your sources are telling you this is at the goal line. Because
yes.
I think you're tapping into sort of what 49er fans are probably thinking, which is there's no way the Niners are going to weaken themselves right before the start of this incredibly important year.
Right.
So, I mean, even if you were going to guess, like what would the Niners even be interested in here that the Steelers would be willing to part with?
So you guys know their roster better than I do, but the Steelers have a guard, James Daniels, who is a nice player. I would say he's an above-average guard. He's in the last year of his contract. He's not making a lot of money. They've already told him that they won't extend him because they've invested so much money in first-round pick offensive linemen. They signed Isaac Seumalo from the Eagles as a guard last year, so he's on the left side. Daniels plays right, but he's played a lot of left in Chicago as a starter. Iowa guy. I mean, he's a good guard. He's not great. No one's going to confuse him for John Hanna or somebody like that, but he's a pretty good player. So interior line, maybe there's a swap there where you get a guy. Maybe the 49ers would extend him. Maybe they would just see what he looks like. But again, that's not one for one. You would not take that player straight up. You wouldn't think for Brandon Aiyuk. But as far as a fit goes, who's the left guard there? Boone? I mean, is he locked in? Do they like him? You guys know that better than I do. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving and shaking right now on the offensive line because Trent Williams is not in camp. You've got some guys, and you've got some guys picked up in the draft who they really, really like. And so fluid is the best way I can say it.
Yeah,
I don't know that much.
I mean, on defense, you've got Highsmith, who's a really good edge rusher who's making over $7 million. I had heard, this is going back before the draft, that maybe they, for the right guy, they might have put him in a trade package, but then they restructured his deal in a way where if they trade him, there's a big dead money hit. I mean, the other side of that is if you do that, you're bringing in Brandon Aiyuk, but you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I could imagine Tomlin wouldn't want to do that because he's such a defensive guy, and plus Highsmith's so well-liked in that locker room. I think they don't want to send shockwaves through their locker room by subtracting somebody like that right before the season starts who actually wants to be here, who signed an extension to be here. So it's tough, man. That's why, look, I said goal line because I think the part of can we put a financial offer hypothetically in front of Brandon Aiyuk that he would say yes to, I get the impression that that part is done. And it's just getting the trade thing worked out, and maybe they can't do it, or maybe the 49ers want to sit on it and wait. But I think the Steelers feel like maybe the complicated part, which has been an issue for other teams, you looked at what Adam Schefter said today, trying to get Aiyuk to agree on a contract, parameters of that with a new team. My understanding is that part of it's pretty much done with the Steelers.
It just comes down to trade compensation, and I'm stuck on, what player could come back to make it worth their while. And, you mentioned the guard, which becomes an interesting piece because the Niners' offensive line is not quite in shambles, but it's definitely in some sort of a flux. But for Pittsburgh and you guys, if you got Brandon Aiyuk, does that suddenly put you in a spot where you think that you're going to be strong contenders in the AFC North?
Yes. I'll answer that question even with the uncertainty at quarterback right now because Russell Wilson, and one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard in my entire life, they brought in a strength and conditioning staff from Boston College, where Tomlin's son played college football last year. I don't think that was a coincidence. And they had these quarterbacks, instead of doing a fitness test that was just gassers up and down, they were pushing sleds around and stuff, and Russell Wilson got hurt. And they've tried to downplay that, but at the same time, we haven't seen him really in 11-on-11 drills and pads all of practice. And my guess is he doesn't play Friday against Houston. And Justin Fields has gotten better pretty much every day. So that's complicated things. I know Tomlin loves Fields, man. And he liked Fields so much that if they had the first pick in that draft, he would have taken Fields over Trevor Lawrence. I've had enough people tell me that was their top quarterback in that draft. So he is just absolutely blown away by the athleticism that he sees in Fields. So that's the situation here, man. Like they've got Van Jefferson and Scotty Miller and Calvin Austin at number 2 wide receiver right now. There is nobody after George Pickens, and that's why for a franchise that's generally drafted wide receivers well, I think they're so motivated to get something done with Aiyuk. And by the way, Wilson's playing for the league minimum, and Fields is on the last year of his rookie deal. So they have the cap space and the financial flexibility to add a big contract like Aiyuk to their roster.
Well, and that's what I want to ask you next. Andrew Fillipponi in Pittsburgh, 97.3, the fan, joining us on these Aiyuk rumors and the discussion going on. Does this make sense to you, Andrew? Like, this is worth it for a team? Not only is Aiyuk $30 million a year, but also you've got to give up a bunch of assets in order to do it. Does that make sense? Like, is Brandon Aiyuk worth that?
Well, you guys would probably be able to answer that question better than me. The 49ers evidently don't think so, which is a little bit scary. I mean, that doesn't really make me that part of it doesn't give me warm and fuzzy feelings, because San Francisco knows offensive football so much better than this team lately. I mean, we've had one of the worst offenses in football for the last 3 or 4 years, really ever since Ben was in his waning years. It's been a disaster. Horrible offensive coordinators, quarterback issues, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, you name it. I will just say one thing about the $30 million, Mark. I've gotten the very strong impression from the people I've talked to that it's not going to be $30 million. It's going to be less than that. That his desire to play for the Steelers, and it must be Mike Tomlin, because I can't think of another reason. I don't think it's Russell Wilson. I don't think it's Justin Fields. I've heard he's going to give them, if this gets done, a little bit of a discount on the contract. So I don't think it's going to be $30 million. I think it might be more like 28 from what I've heard.
Andrew, do you mean that he, like, let's say all contracts were equal, he'd rather be in Pittsburgh than San Francisco? Is that your reporting? That's a great question. My problem with the question, though, Mark, is I don't think he feels like that's realistic. I don't think he feels like that. I don't think he feels like he could. Clearly, I don't think he feels like he could get that contract from the 49ers. So if both things were, if the same contract was on the table from both teams, this is just a hypothesis of mine. I think he would take the 49ers contract. Got it. Okay.
And I mean, yeah. Go ahead. Andrew.
So what I'm guessing is, you guys can tell me if this seems right to you. Maybe the 49ers offers like 26, and maybe a team like the Patriots is willing to give him 30, but he'll take 28 from the Steelers.
Yeah. No, I mean, you may be right. Like, we've heard the 26 thing too, but that was also months ago. I don't actually know if there's an offer on the table right now from San Francisco at all. Like, I could easily make the case that timing suggests that the Niners just should not extend Brandon Aiyuk right now, with Brock Purdy looming and them they don't want to get off of Deebo Samuel next year.
No doubt. So just take for the sake of your audience's sanity, remove everything I've said about this story out of it, and pretend like I don't exist. If you look at what Adam Schefter said again today on McAfee's show, 100% from his reporting is they're entertaining trade offers from other teams. And if you look at what he said specifically about needing two to tango, Aiyuk needing to agree on a contract, and the two teams also being able to agree on a trade, it sounded to me today, listening to Schefter, like the Patriots and 49ers might have been able to get something done if Aiyuk would have accepted the contract offer that the Patriots were ready to give him. I just got the impression from hearing Schefter that he doesn't want to play in New England. That's my inference from having heard him talk. So the bottom line is, if you're a 49ers fan and you don't think that the team is seriously taking offers in dealing with the reality of Brandon Aiyuk playing for another team this fall, then I think you're nuts, just based on what national reporters are saying about the situation now.
It just seems so surprising that it's heating up now. And last time we really talked about it, I think we had you on before the draft. It seemed like that would have been a better time. Do you think
Agreed.
Do you think that the return on an Aiyuk trade would be greater now than it would have been at the draft, or lesser?
Man, I would think lesser. I mean, I would think at the draft there's you'd want the first round pick, or you'd want a pick to use then to make this year's team better. Unless that's a really good question, Dibs. Like, did the 49ers think that this was Brandon Aiyuk posturing, and by the time he got to camp and saw everybody, cooler heads would prevail, and he would kind of pull a T. Higgins and say, I'll pull on the rope for now, but then when the season's over, just let me leave and don't franchise tag me and let me go for greener pastures, then I don't know. I mean, I'm not inside that building. I don't talk to anybody who's a real 49er source other than the conversations we have on the show. But I get the sense that the Steelers feel, let me put it this way, I think they feel better about what they're offering up and what they're willing to give up in a trade with the 49ers now than they were, say, back in April, which, by the way, I think they were very aggressive then even to try to make a trade done, to get a trade done, but the 49ers weren't fully on board with that.
Andrew, I know you've said Pittsburgh, you've said New England, you said Washington maybe is not that interested. Is it your understanding that this is pretty much a New England and Pittsburgh thing, or do you think there are more teams?
I don't think New England's in it. I think New England's out. I don't think he wants to play there.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's my read on things. How do I say this without trying to get myself in trouble or other people in trouble? I think that if you had talked to me 5 hours ago, I would have told you guys that the Steelers felt like there were other teams that could make a better offer than them for a trade. And if Aiyuk was willing to go play for that team and sign a contract there, they would lose out on him. But the impression I'm getting right now, which is why I said it's at the goal line, I don't think the Steelers feel like there's another team at this moment that's in better position to trade for him than they are.
Seems like we've been at the goal line a long time here. Any chance we can either have you guys cough it up, or can you just punch it in before we get off the air in 28 minutes?
Run a play, for God's sakes, Andrew. Delay a game.
Yeah. Well, look, this is Omar Khan, the Steelers GM. He is a different he's a Howie Roseman type, guys. He's not someone that's really got a big-time football background in the scouting world. He's someone that's more from the contractual world, the capology, the dealing with agents, the playing that game. I think that had a lot to do with him being able to get Patrick Queen to come here on a below-market value, just the way he was able to work relationships, get Tomlin in on the mix, leverage him as a guy that was almost like a college head coach on a recruiting visit, being able to give these guys the sales pitch, tell them the things that they want to hear to try to close deals. And I think that's going on right now, to be honest with you. So I think they've got a really proactive, enterprising, energetic front office now that is aggressive and is trying to get these things done, especially when they haven't won a playoff game here since 2016, and they don't have a quarterback on an expensive contract. So, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be for a lack of effort on the Steelers' part. By hook or by crook, they're going to get another wide receiver in here to play before the season kicks off because their depth is just so bad. And I think all along they've had their eyes set on Aiyuk, and they're convinced that he was going to make the 49ers blink in this situation. And from the sounds of things, I think it's pretty close to happening.
What kind of wine are you drinking?
It's called, let me get the bottle here. It's called Saldo, Saldo. I mean, you guys would probably scoff at this, although it says Oakville, California on the back. Do you guys know where that is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Faldo, like the golfer?
No, Saldo.
Oh, Saldo. Saldo.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And what grape are we talking about here? What are you drinking?
This is a California Zinfandel, 2021.
Yeah,
oh man, that's you getting into a deep red right there.
You can have our wine, but you can't have our wide receiver.
Actually,
hey, you guys are great. Thanks for having me on to talk about this. Appreciate it, boys.
Andrew.
Anytime, Andrew.
We might call you again tomorrow. I mean, you only need a yard. All right, buddy.
All right, boys.
Okay.
See ya.
Thanks, Andrew.
Talk to you soon. All right, Andrew Fillipponi in Pittsburgh.